ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्बा त्वामनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमय प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधना वर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तक केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा संबोधना बोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं खलिमल प्रध्वांसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्त्वैः वेदैः साङ्गपदं क्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Isha Dilraj, and it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the fourth day of Gita Week Discourses, in which Sri Angajanji has so beautifully been imparting the pearls of wisdom from the Gita in a practical, power-packed, motivational, and enlightening manner. Yesterday, Angajanji spoke to us about the importance of maintaining a balanced mind, and I particularly found significance in his reference to chapter 2, verse 47 and 48 of the Gita, which narrates the importance of renouncing attachment and remaining equipoised in both the joy of success and the pain of failure in our life experiences by keeping a calm mind, as that is the true nature of a yoga. So, without further ado, let me hand over to and welcome Sri Angajanji. Thank you.
Greetings, namaskar, and salutations to one and all of you. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastoma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome back once again during this auspicious week where we celebrate the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. It was the year 1893, 7th of June, in the night. A young lawyer was traveling from Durban to Pretoria to represent a case in the High Court. And by now you must have gathered, his name was M.K. Gandhi. As he was sitting in the first class compartment, where it is marked whites only, there was a white man sitting in a particular seat, which is not very far from where Gandhi was sitting. And the white man reported to the train security that I cannot sit in the same compartment where a coolie is sitting. And the officer asked Gandhi to leave the compartment, and Gandhi said, I will not, because I am legitimate. I have a first-class ticket to travel from Durban to Pretoria. He refused. And the security brought the police, and they dragged Gandhi out of the train and pushed him out. We all know the story. We all know the incident history. And he was brutally dragged and pushed him out of the train on that cold winter night, freezing cold, the month of June. Gandhi, sitting on the bare floor of Pietermaritzburg train station, helpless. His bags and other belongings were scattered all over. Train left the platform, and he had to represent the case next day. That was the momentous, life-changing moment in Gandhi's life. No doubt, he did get upset. He was angry, remarkably. But unlike many of us in the world, his anger, his upset, his emotion was very different. What is the difference? When he got angry, when he was upset, he did not get angry with the police officer who dragged him out of the train. His inner reaction was very unique. He was not upset with the police officer because the police officer was only doing his duty. That is, from the whites only compartment, he dragged him out. Now the question is, what was Gandhi upset about? He was angry at the system, the political system of apartheid. And that momentous moment, he resolved within him that this cannot be. This cannot go on. This inhumane treatment, insane, of course, from the police officer's point of view. This inhumane treatment cannot go on. He made the resolve. And that reaction within him, or I would say response to his experience. Mark my words, his response, his inner response to his experience made a revolutionary. Unlike many other revolutionaries, a peaceful revolutionary that made an indelible impact in the minds of people who heard about Gandhi, who read about Gandhi, who knows about what Gandhi went through. The difference is this, ladies and gentlemen, and that is when the emotions welled up in his mind, unlike many people, he was the master of his emotions rather than the victim, rather than the slave of emotions. His emotions manifested in his mind. The direction of that emotions called anger, upset, agitations was not at the police officer, but it was something far beyond, far higher, far superior. He directed his emotions to a higher purpose, a freedom movement. And thus, he began the well-known Natal Indian Congress to fight against the apartheid. And having transformed his vision, experience, emotion, having lived here in this country, in South Africa for 21 years, and he did amazing work in this country against apartheid, for freedom struggle in many ways. And he went back to India. And then he's fought for the salvation of millions. I would say billions now, if it was now. That time it was only millions. It all began with that one experience. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we also go through such experience in our day-to-day life, don't we? Every now and then, we do get treated by the other people, sometimes disrespectfully. We do get treated by disrespectfully, insulted. How do we react to it? Are we reacting to those experiences emotionally, or are we responding to our insult or negative experiences rationally? That makes a world of difference in our life, whether it is happiness, success, our marital relationship, our relationship with our colleagues at work, or in the society, in every areas of human life that matters. So the subject matter today, as you know, is the power of emotional mastery. And that experience transformed his initiation into that revolution or peaceful revolution, transformed the lives of millions. Many other global leaders learned Gandhi's lesson. He understood that we cannot fight against the British for two reasons. In India, I'm talking about, in his freedom struggle. The two reasons are, number one, we don't have the resources to fight Indians, nor do we have the mindset to fight, by choice, of course. Why? Because our religion, our culture, our time-tested culture for over millenniums taught us peaceful approach to life. Serenity, equanimity, shanti. That is why Indians in general, Hindus particularly, every prayer, every undertaking, they conclude by saying peace, 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 shanti. Now, we all go through several experiences, emotional experiences, like anger, jealousy, hatred, vanity, power. Sometimes the emotions are mild, we can handle it effortlessly. Sometimes emotions are mediocre, we will need much more effort to handle it. Sometimes emotions are so powerful, we get engulfed in a tsunami of emotions. And we often get swept away by powerful tsunami of emotion. It could be for many reasons. According to you believe these emotions come from outside. It could be a financial setback, or a difficult relationship, or a loss of a family member, or it could be anything. If you want to manage those emotions and still stand strong in life, you got to learn the technique of emotional mastery. You got to learn what is the root cause of emotions. Where do emotions originating from? We need to understand the dynamics of emotions. There are two types of emotions: good emotions and bad emotions, noble emotions and ignoble emotions, negative emotions and positive emotions. Negative emotions like anger, jealousy, hatred, vanity, fear. Positive emotions like love, compassion, kindness, gratitude, forgiveness. Positive emotions are less in number in our mind in comparison to negative emotions. Our negative emotions invariably outnumber the positive emotions. That is why in the Mahabharata, in the Kurukshetra war, where the message of the Bhagavad Gita was imparted to Arjuna, 5 Pandavas with 7 battalion, 100 Kauravas with 11 battalion. Kauravas, the negative force, the Pandavas, the noble force. Within each one of us, the Kurukshetra war is not something that was fought thousands of years ago. Kurukshetra war is something that is being fought within the bosom of every one of us every single day. So emotions are powerful. It can take you to great heights in life if you respond to it effectively, like in the case of Gandhi. But if you react to those emotions irrationally, it can bring you down to the depth of degradation in every sense of the term. There are so many case studies, examples that you can analyze. People with all the blessings, having had all the blessings, one powerful emotion sparked an act of violence like murder, or a dreaded act like suicide, unable to manage their emotions, and so many other deeds. People unable to control their greed and emotion, they have performed malpractices, unethical activities, stealing, corruption, had to live in the prison the rest of their life. Fortunately, many corrupt leaders don't live in the prison in this country. Many other countries they do. Where do the emotions originate from? What is the root cause of emotion? That is exactly the theme in the 62 and 63 verses of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is called Sankhya Yoga. These two verses, verses 62 and 63, are some of the most potent verses in the Bhagavad Gita, pregnant with deep values and principles of managing emotions that we need to understand. And we will try and unpack some of those emotions. In fact, these verses only refer a few emotions, but those are representative emotions to cover the entire range, the panorama of emotions. Let us look at what these two verses say, verses 62 and 63 of the second chapter.
ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति.
The translation of these two profound verses reads, a man musing on objects, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. Vishaya means the objects of pleasure that the world offers, sense objects, the things that we enjoy from the world. A man, woman also included, musing, constantly thinking about a particular enjoyment, develops attachment for them. From attachment arises desire. Sangasteshu upajayade. Sangha means attachment. We spoke about attachment yesterday. Upajayade means begins. What is it? And from attachment arises desire. Sangat sanjayate kama. Kama means desire. Kamat krodho abhijayate. From desire arises anger. Krodha, one of the most powerful universal emotions everybody go through, from a newborn infant to the oldest. Almost every animals go through anger. How do we handle it? And then he says, Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger arises delusion. Delusion is when you lose yourself. Sammohat smriti bramshaha. From delusion arises the loss of memory. Confusion of memory. From confusion of memory, that is smriti bramshas buddhinasha. When they lose the memory, they lose their thinking ability, rational faculty. Buddhinashat pranashyati. When your thinking faculty, when your assessment, judgment, analysis is gone, buddhinashat pranashyati. From the loss of intellect, total destruction. That is the verse reads. So he's referring to attachment, desire. First of all, he talks about musing. Musing means thinking, mild thought. And then he talks about attachment. Then he talks about desire. Then he talks about anger, and then delusion. You know, when your anger goes out of control, you don't know whom you're talking, what you're talking. And then you lose your memory. Subsequently, people highly emotional, as they grow older, that is when they suffer from memory loss, disease. Sometimes many people, not very old, in their 60s, suffer from losing their memory. Dementia and other diseases. People who continuously get angry. I'm going to analyze to you what is anger. And they constantly go through fear, constantly go through insecurity, jealousy, greed. All these, as they grow older, they either loses generally short-term memory. They lose. Long-term memory, they seem to have. From confusion of memory, loss of intellect, they can't make decisions. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. Now what he's saying is, let's analyze, let's try to unpack these verses. Think carefully along with me. Set aside your communication devices, cell phone or whatever that device is, and be attentive. What I'm going to talk to you from the Bhagavad Gita, verses 62 and 63 of chapter 2 is extremely important. Every aspect of your life. He says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha. A man musing on objects. Dhyaya meaning keep thinking about a particular object. Now, how does that thought come? We have, let's go one step further. Within our subconscious mind, which is called causal body, we have vasanas. Vasanas are the root of your thoughts. Vasanas, the seed of the thought, express as a mild curiosity, which is a thought. Why not? For example, a boy, a teenager, sees among other friends, one of them is smoking. So when he sees the other friend smoking, he gets a curiosity, if he's got vasanas. He gets a curiosity, hey, what is smoking like? What do you feel? What's the kick that you get by taking a puff? When he gets a curiosity, he keeps thinking about it over and over again about the cigarette. You apply this to anything. A young boy meets a girl, and he had a pleasant experience for 1 hour. And he keeps thinking about her over and over again. And he develops a desire to meet her again. And he, meets her once again. And then maybe third time. And by the time he meets her third time, or it could be the other way. In the third meeting, one of them falls. And where does he fall? And where does she fall? You have guessed it right. In love. That is why they say you fall in love. You ought not to fall in love. You got to rise in love. Love is meant to rise, not to fall. And yet, many relations begins with a big fall. That is why those relationships often don't last. If at all those relationships last, it is on a very rocky surface. Lots of ups and downs, difficulties, somehow they manage. So he keeps thinking about, musing about that person or that object, and he develops a thought, and then he develops a desire to enjoy her company more and more. Or this boy who thought about desire, about a cigarette, as a desire to take a puff. He goes and take a puff. He feels nice. He gets a kick. And when he gets that temporary pleasure, he wants to go and takes the puff again and again. And before you realize, he develops habit. That is what we call addiction. And once it becomes a habit, very difficult to get rid of it. You know the problem with the habit. If you remove H from habit, a bit remains. If you remove H and A from habit, bit remains. If you remove H, A, and B from the word habit, it remains. That is why, elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, he says, rasa, the traces of habit still remain. That's why you find alcoholics who become sober are strictly advised not to go anywhere near the pub. Don't associate with friends who are drinkers, because the seed is still there. It can get inflamed anytime. Thought, desire, vasana, thought, desire, action, habits. Your habit determines your destiny. Now, when this desire that you have, that is originating from the vasana, gets modified into a series of emotions. So therefore, what exactly is the root of emotions? Any emotion, what is the root of emotions? Says the Gita, it is your desire, kama. Desire under certain circumstances modifies into a series of emotions. Let us analyze one by one. Here is a young boy, 25 years, worked very hard through the university. And he came out of the university with flying colors, did very well, got a cushy job, well-paid job in a multinational corporation, very relatively senior position for a young man. And then he has been nourishing a desire for a car, a dream car, a flashy car. When he has a desire, now you apply this to any, I'm just using taking car as an example. It can be anything. It can be a small desire to be a life-changing desire. So when he entertains the desire, there are two options. Either you fulfill the desire or don't fulfill the desire. Let us analyze. What happens when he fulfills the desire and when he doesn't fulfill the desire? When he fulfills the desire, he rakes up the money to put the deposit and he buys his brand new toy, a Ferrari or any other car for that matter. And he takes the car out of the showroom and he's so excited, he got his dream car. You can imagine. So when the desire is fulfilled, what happens? He's happy. When the desire is unfulfilled, he's unhappy. Let's say the bank rejected his bond application for his fancy car. The bank says, looking at the circumstances that we are in, we will not approve the bond. The bank says, if the desire is not fulfilled, he's unhappy, he's dejected, he's agitated. We don't need Bhagavad Gita to tell us that. We go through it every day. So many things, so many times we go through. When the desire is fulfilled, we are excited. When the desire is not fulfilled, we are down in the dumps. We go through it. Now, what is Bhagavad Gita talking about? What's the big deal? We know it every day. You go to a restaurant and you order a dish of your choice, and the waiter delivers the, your order. You waited impatiently after 45 minutes and you got your favorite dish, and then it is not according to your taste. And You went to a very classy restaurant, you paid a fortune to enjoy the meal. In the restaurant, you don't really pay for the food, you pay for the experience, the ambience. And the food is not according to your taste. You're disappointed. Numerous cases, isn't it? When the desire is fulfilled, you're happy. When the desire is unfulfilled, you're unhappy. We know that. Do we need to spend 1 hour from the Bhagavad Gita to tell us that? But let us see what happens. There is a host of emotions happens beyond this. There's an entire panorama of emotions happens beyond fulfillment or unfulfillment of the desire. Let's go back to this boy who bought his brand new car. He's excited. Immediately, when his desire is fulfilled, there is another emotion comes up, which most people in the world ignores, don't realize that. And what is that emotion? He got his desire, his dream car. He took the car out of the showroom on a Friday evening, and Saturday early morning he wakes up, he goes to the garage to admire his brand new toy. He touches it, feels it. He gets and he sits inside the brand new car and he can smell the brand new leather. Oh, exciting experience. And then as he's admiring his car, he finds a scratch on the bonnet. And when he sees the scratch on his brand new Ferrari, what happens? A permanent scratch on his heart. Why? Attachment. Remember, I spoke to you yesterday, the effect of attachment. And that is, when you are attached to anything, whatever happens to that object of attachment happens to you, because you mentally become one with the object. A mother who's attached to her baby, whatever happens to the baby happens to the mother, and mother will not be able to handle that baby, will not be able to grow that child effectively, healthily, unless she learns detachment. The boy is very attached to the car. As a result, he goes through anxiety. He's so afraid somebody scratches the car, somebody steals the car. Attachment produces anxiety. Now, you may wonder, is it wrong to feel happy by getting the car? Yes. You mean I get a object of desire? It could be a house, it could be a brand of clothes or anything. And when I get it, is it wrong to feel happy? Yes. What nonsense is that? Bhagavad Gita says that? Yes. What do you mean? Yes. You can have numerous questions. You mean to say to feel happy is wrong? Yes, to feel happy is wrong. You heard it right. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a difference between feeling happy and feeling contented, feeling satisfied. Happiness is momentary. Satisfaction and contentment is lasting. The joy, the pleasure of desire for the car being fulfilled doesn't last more than a week or 10 days. After 10 days, the boy gets so acclimatized to the use of the car, thereafter the car is no more an object of pleasure. So many things. The same boy who wanted to get married to that girl that I told you, madly in love with her, that excitement lasts maybe a few days after the marriage. Thereafter, it is no more an object of excitement. After 3 months, the same boy says, my God, why did I get into? she's a monster or he's a monster, everything changes. There is a difference between pleasure and happiness or satisfaction and contentment. There is a difference between joy. A lot of people misunderstand. They misunderstand pleasure for happiness, joy for satisfaction, contentment. By fulfilling the desire, by fulfilling your desire, you get temporary pleasures. But if you want satisfaction and contentment, you need to do something more. That comes by eradication of the desire. Satisfaction and contentment comes by sacrificing. Sacrifice is satisfaction. Let's say you have a bar of chocolate. Let's take a mundane example. You have a bar of chocolate and you love the chocolate. And when you eat the chocolate, what do you get? Apart from the weight, of course. What do you get? Pleasure. And what is that pleasure? Before the chocolate touches the tongue, there is no pleasure. After the chocolate leaves the tongue, there is no pleasure. The pleasure of the chocolate is only when the chocolate is in contact with the tongue, not before, not after. This is called momentary pleasure. Similarly, in the case of car, after a few weeks, a week or 10 days maximum, car is no more exciting. You get acclimatized to it. This is the history. Now the same chocolate, you see a child sitting next to you. And from the look of it, you know the child loves the chocolate. You sacrificed that pleasure and gave the chocolate to the child sitting next to you. And you watch the child relishing the chocolate. You know, baby children, they don't really eat the chocolate in a way that adults do. They mess it up. They mess their hand, mess their mouth, etc. and all over. And the child is relishing the chocolate. When you watch the child relishing the chocolate, what do you feel? I know it's difficult for most of us. When you watch the child relishing the chocolate, what do you feel? You ought to feel a sense of satisfaction. You sacrifice your pleasure for something longer. And that satisfaction leaves an indelible impression in your mind. And then you're attached. Instead of attachment is when you say, it's my car, don't touch it. It's my house, it's my wife, it's my husband, it's my money, it's my clothes. So long as we go through this emotion called attachment, possessiveness, you will go through a lot of anxiety. Instead of possessiveness, consider this, that I am simply a trustee of my possessions. That attitude, a trusteeship attitude. Nothing belonged to us. What belongs to me today was belonging to somebody else yesterday, and it will belong to somebody else tomorrow. When we leave this body, what happens? Somebody else will take your position as a CEO of your company. If you're young, even in a relationship will get replaced. That's a reality. If a person dies, young, a married person, maybe a little later, the living partner will find another one. But when you're alive, say, it's my wife. The photographs of you will remain in the house for maybe a few years. Thereafter, they'll take out the photograph and push in the cupboard somewhere. Your name will be among the family for, if the close family, it might remain in the mind for a few years. The friends and distant family, maybe for a week. But when we have it, we go through that possessiveness. I, my. Therefore, understand the attitude of trusteeship. Idam namama. That means this is not mine. Then whose is it? I have been privileged to take care of it. The child don't belong to you. The child belongs to nature. Your child belongs to the universe. You are simply a trustee of your child. The child has come through you, not from you. Your child comes with his or her own karma, and allow the child to blossom into whatever the child wants to be. That is true parenting. When you're attached, you cannot. You're attached. And then what happens? The third negative emotion. This is when the desire is fulfilled, right? He got his brand new car, Ferrari or whatever that car is. And then what happened? He enjoys the car for a few days, and then he still owns it. A year later or 2 years later, his career is really on the higher track. It's got a meteoric rise. Then he wants something more, something better, something more appealing according to him. Maybe a helicopter, I don't know. What happens is, when the desire is fulfilled, he feels pleasure, gets attached, and then he develops another deadly emotion, ladies and gentlemen, which you got to learn, understand, and control it. And what is that emotion? That is called lobha, greed. Greed for more and more. The more you get, the more you want, the more you want, the more you get caught up in this vicious cycle of acquisition, preservation, with the belief that I'm going to enjoy one day, but nobody enjoyed it. A man in the street who has no legs to walk around, asking for donation, begging. He looks at the other people who are happily walking. He says, if only I had legs to walk, how happy I would have been. He goes through that if only syndrome. Ask a man who walks to work 1 hour every day from the rural place to the city. He says, if only I had a small car, even a used car is fine, how happy my life would have been. Ask a man who's got a small car. He looks at somebody else who's got a better car, a bigger car, and a high-end car. He says, if only I had a car like that, how happy I would have been. Ask a man who's got a high-end car. He wants a supercar, Ferrari, or Lamborghini, or whatever it is. Ask a man who's got a supercar like Ferrari or Lamborghini. He wants a designer car, a custom-made car, probably Rolls-Royce. Ask a man who's got a Rolls-Royce. He's so unhappy that he can only drive a Rolls-Royce. He can't fly in the helicopter. This is the power of greed. This is highlighted by the famous story of King Midas. Midas was so greedy that he wanted to amass volumes and volumes of gold. So much so that he prayed to God and said, whatever I touch must turn into gold. Having prayed, he was blessed with that boon of touching everything and turn into gold. And he touched everything, converted into gold. He was so happy. And as he was reveling in that newfound boon, his only one daughter, young daughter, came rushing. Oh, daddy, hugged him. And the young girl turned into a gold statue. What's the point? Having a gold statue as your daughter? This is the power of greed. Then what do? Convert greed into an aspiration. Transform greed into a goal. How can you convert? Let your action, that is what we discussed yesterday. When your actions are oblated to a higher ideal that is beyond your self-interest, everything else will be taken care of. This is not only the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. Many other faith and religion and philosophy have conveyed the same thing. Bible says, you seek the kingdom of heaven and everything else shall be added on to you. So says William Shakespeare, many other thinkers. So these principles are time-tested. Greed, one of the deadly negative emotions, convert greed into an aspiration. When the greed is fulfilled, the more you get, the more you want, the more you want, the more you get, the more you get, the more you... In this vicious cycle, when the greed is fulfilled, comes another deadly negative emotion. When your aspiration or desires and uncontrollable desires are fulfilled, comes another terrible negative emotion, arrogance. You develop arrogance towards those people who have less, who have less than you. You look down upon them. They are somewhere there. They're still driving an old TT. I'm driving a Ferrari. TT, Toyota Tazz. That sense of uppishness. You're aspiring for promotion. You're intelligent, you're smart, you're hardworking, you got it. And you look down upon the other colleagues who were in the same level before. You internally feel a sense of uppishness, arrogance. I've got it. And you look down upon them. Arrogance, a deadly negative emotion. Very often, in fact, Shankaracharya talks about in the Bhaja Govindam, it is called Yauvana Garvam, the pride of youth. It's a stage that many youth go through and it becomes disastrous. Many of them lost their life. Many of them lost their relationship with their parents, although they are not, they're alive. Many of them lost their career because when they were going through the dangerous phase of life called the pride of youth, because they are hardworking, they're successful, and they look down upon other people. They look at the world as a small lemon that you can step down on. Once, there was an elderly lady, very senior lady, trying to park her high-end SUV. And she was slow, of course. She found a parking and she was trying to slowly park there. And a young boy in his early 20s came, quite quickly before she could park. He came and overtook her pretty fast and parked in the parking place where she was trying to park slowly. And he got out of the car, locked the car, and very, boastfully came to the lady and said, "Look, that's what you can do when you're young." And he walked away with an arrogant attitude. The lady was very calm. And she reversed the car fair distance and pressed the gas and sped and banged his supercar, just crashed it. And the young boy came running. What did you do? How can you do this? The elderly lady said, that's what I can do when I'm rich and old. Don't play around with rich old people. They're experienced. Arrogance. Convert arrogance into self-confidence. Self-belief. Arrogance is the negative side of ego. Self-confidence is the positive side of ego. When your ego is controlled by your intellect, your ego takes the form of self-belief, self-confidence. A person with self-confidence will be a great achiever in life than another person with all the knowledge, skill, and qualifications, academic track records. Self-belief works magic. Arrogance towards those people who have got less than you. So how do we convert the ego in the positive direction? That requires intellect. The rational ability, head and the heart, buddhi and manas, dimag and dil, arrogance, attachment, joy, all at the emotional level. Intellect controls your emotion. Intellect controls your heart. How do you develop the intellect? Just as I mentioned to you yesterday. How do you develop your muscles? You got to go to the gym and exercise or wherever. Similarly, you got to exercise. And that requires investment of time, especially in the early hours of the morning. You got to spend time to study our Shastras. Those who wish to continue, I run a weekly session of the study of our Shastras. At the moment, we are studying the Bhagavad Gita, weekly classes. But there are certain prerequisites to be able to attend that. If you are one of those who are interested, you can contact the foundation website, mastery.vision. You get the details to reach out. You might wonder, what is the cost? The problem today is that we measure everything with money. We weigh everything to money. When you weigh everything with money, you become moneyful but valueless. In terms of money, there is no formal cost attached to this course that I offer. I've been asked this question time and time again in South Africa as well as the other countries that I travel. But why don't you charge? Why don't you put a fee to it? We don't charge, not because we don't need the funds, not because we have enough funds. We don't charge not because what I offer is valueless. We don't charge because what we offer is priceless. It is invaluable. It is not something that you can weigh with money. Those who wants to offer, you can make your donation to the Life Mastery Foundation, the foundation that I run. You can offer your Guru Dakshina. That's all. But then it is not for those who are interested. It is for those who are committed. If you are interested, you will attend whenever it is convenient to you. If you are committed, you will attend whatever it takes. So these weekly classes are for those people who are committed, who are prepared to attend whatever it takes. During this lockdown period, Obviously, we are conducting this course online, but once the lockdown is fully lifted, it will be face-to-face meeting, of course. So there is no formal cost, but your contributions will help the Life Mastery Foundation to run our activities, various educational activities for the young and old, senior citizens, married couples, youth, of course, this kind of discourses. You're welcome to participate, reach us. So that will help us to strengthen your intellect. Now, when the desire is fulfilled, you are happy, you develop attachment, you develop greed, arrogance, fear. Another kind of emotion. What fear? Fear of losing. When the desire is fulfilled, you constantly go through that insecurity. Now, this season that the world is going through, the advent of pandemic, COVID-19, economically, the whole world is going through a very challenging period. And many people may have lost their job, and many people who have not lost their job may be afraid of losing the job. If you are one of those who is going through the fear of losing the job, examine your fear. Why do you go through the fear of losing the job? Because you have made yourself that way. Can you imagine another scenario wherein your employer is afraid of losing you? I know people that the employers are desperately scared of losing them. If you are afraid of losing the job, which means you did not make yourself invaluable among your employers. Your commitment, your dedication, your devotion, your passion, your talent, ability, you did not. As a result, you are scared of losing the job rather than the employers scared of losing the job. You convert fear into adventure. When the fear is controlled, it becomes adventure. You are prepared to take any risk. When you have a desire that is fulfilled, you have a series of negative emotion. Using the choice, the free will that we discussed on the first day, you can convert the negative emotion into a positive power. This is what happens when the desire is fulfilled. Let us see what happens when the desire is unfulfilled. You are unhappy, you are agitated. Any desire that is not fulfilled or agitated, can you convert that unhappiness, agitation into self-motivation? Agitation can be stress that leads to distress. Distress, if it is not managed, leads to depression. Self-motivation. And then further, when the desire is unfulfilled, if that desire is obstructed, interrupted by an external agency, that obstructed desire becomes anger. So what is the root cause of anger? Desire, expectations. When your expectations are obstructed, interrupted, you get agitated. And there is a range of anger from a mild irritation to an outburst of temper. That is krodha. When you experience that anger, you forget, you lose yourself. Alexander the Great, he came to India, having conquered many parts of the world. He wanted to conquer the world. And he met with, he knew about great sages and saints in India, and he met one of those great sages. Alexander told the saint, I want you to come with me to Greece. I want to take you home. And the sage said, where is Greece? Greece and Rome is inside me. That Alexander did not like it. What do you mean Greece and Rome is inside you? I'm trying to conquer the world and you are saying that it's inside you. He got upset, he got angry, he got irritated. I can't come with you, said the sage. And Alexander pulled out his sword. You know what I can do? I am Alexander the great conqueror. I can cut you into pieces. Oh man, you can cut my body into pieces. You can't cut me. Because he was a God-realized saint. You cannot cut the real spirit God principle with him. You cannot cut me. And then the sage asked, whom did you say you are? What's your name, you said? Then Alexander said, I'm Alexander the Great, Emperor. You mean you are Alexander the Great? You don't even deserve to be my slave's slave. And you're talking about you are Alexander the Emperor. That made Alexander think. Alexander asked, what do you mean? I am your slave's slave? Then the sage explained. My slave is anger. I have kept anger as a slave. And you are a slave of anger. You get irritated so easily, so upset. Therefore, you are a slave of my slave. That made Alexander think. And Alexander began to delve into a lot of Indian philosophy. There are some profound quotations by Alexander. And you can see that it is coming from our Hindu wisdom, Indian wisdom. When you accept the situation, you convert anger into tolerance. Anger has to be calibrated. Anger has to be measured. Yes, sometimes you may have to display anger, a show of anger, but the mind should be so cool like pool. Some people sometimes need certain reaction from you, which may be in a mode of anger, but that is only a display, but mind is absolutely stable. And when the anger is full, when the desire is not fulfilled, you're unhappy, you get angry, and you can go through rivalry, jealousy. When this anger is not controlled, in that situation, when the desire is not fulfilled, you're looking at somebody else who's aspiring for the same thing that you are looking for. Like I used the example, there's an opportunity for promotion at work. You're aspiring to be in that position. When you are aspiring for it and somebody else also aspiring for it, two people aspiring for one and the same position, what do you feel? Rivalry, jealousy, a deadly negative emotion. Convert jealousy into healthy competition. Competition there will be and there should be, because competition is the fundamental principle of progress and growth. If there is no competition, there will be no growth. For a country, especially for an economy, for a democracy, a democratic government needs a stiff competition to free from corruption. India, for many decades, only one party was so strong, every election they will come back to power over and over again, and the country was drowned in corruption. Very same thing is happening to South Africa. You need a stiff competition to make sure that a particular party a government belonging to a particular party behaves. Without competition, it is adverse to the country. Today, people vote emotionally. They don't vote rationally. Next election, you got to think which party you vote. Don't vote emotionally. When you don't create a stiff competition, you will find a particular party, political party, gets drowned in corruption because nobody can question them. And if at all they delegate an inquiry, the same party will engage the people belonging to the same party to investigate the same party and report to the same party. What nonsense is that? How can corruption ever will get out of it? You need healthy competition, not rivalry. That is competition without hatred. That ability to fight without hatred, that is what Mahatma Gandhi taught the world. You can fight without hatred. That is called healthy competition. And in that competition, if you lose, you develop vengeance, revenge, a deadly negative emotion. And then another kind of fear. When the desire is fulfilled, you have the fear of losing. When the desire is not fulfilled, you have the fear of not getting. A host of negative emotions when the desire is unfulfilled. All these negative emotions cloud your intellect, clouds your thinking ability. When your thinking ability is clouded, he says, that is smriti bhramsha. When the memory is gone, loss of discrimination. You lose your thinking. And when thinking is gone, buddhi nashat pranashyati. When your rational capacity, your reasoning ability, when you lose your ability to understand the circumstances is gone, you lead yourself into total destruction. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. 63rd verse of the Bhagavad Gita. So who brings our own destruction? Ourselves. Our intellect. Once the intellect is gone, you get into delusion. Delusion means you don't know whom you're talking, what you're doing, where you're doing. Such a person who's deluded, you'll find them doing things that you least expect them to do. Sometimes gruesome crime, atrocious acts they commit. In that, under the influence of emotions. When you're under the influence of emotions, making decisions are worse than making decisions under the influence of alcohol. Many times magnified. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita says, he continues to discuss in the later verses, what do? You got to strengthen the intellect. That is where the Shastra is coming in. When the intellect is weak, emotions overtake, emotions overpower. And our lives are ruled by emotion. According to Harvard Business School, they say 84% our decisions, 84% of our decisions are governed by emotions rather than rationality or logic. When emotions rule us, emotional decisions sound very logical to you. That's a tragedy. It appears very logical. It's just like a boy madly in love with a girl. He does not listen to somebody else's advice, or a girl with a boy. The best of well-wishers, he thinks, are not in favor of them. So he ignores the advice of the father, mother, brother, sister, uncle, aunt. Before you commit, think, is this the right girl or is this the right boy? He says, no, I am very certain this is the boy. That is called delusion, where you close your mind. You're not prepared to listen to somebody else's point of view. And when you are not prepared to listen to somebody else's point of view, another angle, a different view, you lead yourself into distraction. So says, buddhi nashat pranashyati. So what is the way out? That is where spiritual sadhana, that is where our scriptures, be it the Bhagavad Gita, the Veda, the Upanishad, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these literatures guide us into strengthening the intellect. Now, tomorrow, before you go away, there's a few important announcements. We will be discussing a different topic that will bring a lot of happiness, right? Before I hand over the stage to Isha, we'll conclude a Shanti Pantra. Om Purnamata Purnamitam Purnat Purnamutachyate Purnasya Purnamataya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you so much, Angajinji, for yet another enlightening and inspirational discourse on such an important aspect, mastering our emotions. Before we sign off for the evening, please can I ask you all for a bit more of your time and request that you all stay with us for a few more important announcements. We are extremely grateful to Sri Angajinji for delivering these enlightening discourses on the Gita. And as this Tuesday will be the last day of the discourses on the Gita, I would like to speak to you for a little bit about the importance of Guru Dakshina. Hindu tradition over the millenniums have maintained the unbroken tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara, Guru-disciple lineage, and this knowledge has reached us effortlessly from the masters of the yore. We, as recipients of this invaluable knowledge, have an obligation and indebtedness to this age-old tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara. That indebtedness is called Rishi Rina, indebtedness to the Gurus. We fulfill that obligation so that the flow of this knowledge can be maintained for future generations as well. The tradition that we reciprocate the teacher generously with Guru Dakshina, which is a voluntary expression of gratitude through your kind contributions by cash donations. Your donations will help the Life Mastery Foundation and Sri Angajinji to propagate this knowledge and will be used for further dissemination of spiritual knowledge. You can make your donations on PayPal via angajan10@gmail.com, or you could click on the link below in the description box for more payment options. The Life Mastery Foundation is dedicated to the dissemination of value education, life skills, principle-centered living to humanity at large, regardless of any discrimination of faith, religion, creed, or race. Kindly also note that the Life Mastery Foundation is an accredited PBO, accredited by SARS under Section 18A1A. Secondly, kindly note that Angajinji will be delivering a final discourse on Krishna Janmashtami, which will be on Wednesday, the 12th August on YouTube Live from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. So please diarize this and conclude this blissful period with some final words of spiritual inspiration. I would like to sincerely thank you all for joining us tonight and also pay special thanks to the following temples: the Amshranga Hindu Society, the Gujarati Hindu Sanskruti Kendra, Sri Gopal Lal Hindu Temple, Vishwarupa Temple, and the Dharamshala. Finally, please can I ask that you all subscribe to all the other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The link is in the description box below. Also, if you have not already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the bell icon to receive notifications for future events and inspiring video uploads. Additionally, please do share the information, particularly about the next few days of Gita discourses, so more people can join in and benefit from the wisdom of Sri Angajinji. See you all tomorrow, same time on YouTube Live. Stay safe and Hari Om.